My family said, "You'll understand one day her wedding is just more important." I smiled. Hours later, their jaws dropped because my ceremony was in a castle, streamed live with 3 million viewers. I stood in front of the mirror, pinning my veil in place, taking a deep breath as I checked my reflection. The dress was perfect, the hair elegantly styled, and the makeup soft but glowing. Today was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. Instead, my stomach was twisting into knots, and I couldn't shake the heavy feeling in my chest. My phone buzzed suddenly, vibrating violently against the counter. I glanced at the screen, noticing the name, Mum, lighting up the display. I picked it up, breathless, already knowing what was coming. I'd been dreading this call all week. "Lauren?" My mom's voice came through, no pleasantries, no introduction. "We need to talk about your wedding date." I froze, my stomach sinking even further. I looked at myself in the mirror, a nervous laugh bubbling up. What could this possibly be about? Was something wrong? It was only 12 days away. Why? I managed to ask, my voice trembling slightly. "Well," Mom continued, her tone tight, like she was already preparing for a fight. "Madison booked her wedding for the same day. You know, the one at the country club. The one she's been planning for months." My heart dropped. "What? Are you serious?" "She didn't have any other Saturdays available," Mom went on, almost as if it was an excuse. "You know the venue, it's more expensive, more sophisticated than yours. Honestly, you'll understand someday." I felt the words hit me like a physical blow. "You're asking me to move my wedding?" I asked slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Lauren, Madison's wedding is the bigger event," Mom said, her tone now firm. "Yours is small, intimate. You and Ryan can reschedule. It's not that serious." "Not that serious." My chest tightened. I felt the heat rise in my face, the sting of being dismissed, the feeling of being small, like I didn't matter. Not serious. This was my wedding, my once-in-a-lifetime moment. "None of you are coming if I keep the date," I said, my voice calm but cold, not trusting myself to yell. The silence that followed was suffocating. It felt like everything in my life, every single moment of being overlooked by my family, was crystallizing into this one horrible moment. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the silence too loud, the words too heavy. Then Dad's voice broke in, soft and apologetic. "We'll attend Madison's wedding. You can do something small, afterward a backyard dinner or something. It'll be cute." A backyard dinner for my wedding. Cute. That was it. They weren't asking me to change it, they were telling me. My fingers tightened around the phone, but I held myself together, trying not to let them see how much it hurt. Madison's voice chimed in from behind my mom. "You'll understand when you have a real wedding like mine," she said sweetly. "Don't make this weird." I let out a sharp breath, a mix of disbelief and rage. "Thanks," I said softly, my voice cold as ice. "I appreciate your honesty." I hung up without waiting for a response. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't show it. I couldn't let them see how much it crushed me. The room was too quiet. Too bright. It felt like I had stepped out of my own life, as if everything had suddenly become too big to contain, too real. My phone buzzed again, and I glanced at it, seeing Madison's name. Her message was almost sweet, as though she hadn't just shattered everything. "Lo, don't be hurt. You'll understand when you have a real wedding like mine. Love you, 2 hearts." I stared at the screen, numb. It wasn't tears in my eyes, just raw disbelief. A real wedding, the words burned as they sank in, and I felt smaller than I ever had before. I swallowed hard, trying to control the shaking in my legs. For a moment, I was that little girl again, the one who had always been pushed aside, always second to Madison. But then something shifted inside me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't fear. It was something else. I wiped my eyes, stood straighter, and whispered to myself, "They just handed me the perfect chance." The door swung open then, and Ryan stepped inside, holding a pack of sparkling water and sandwiches. He looked at me, his face lighting up in concern. "Hey babe, who died? Your face looks like you saw a ghost." I took a deep breath, shaking my head. I told him everything, every word, every insult, every moment that made it clear my happiness didn't matter to my family. When I finished, Ryan didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then he set the sandwiches down and looked at me. "We're not moving our wedding." I nodded, barely able to speak. "They said hers is more important," he asked gently. "Yes. And they expect us to have a backyard backup party like we're grilling hot dogs." That almost made me laugh. Ryan smiled and stepped closer, his hands gripping my arms. "Then we're going to give them a show they'll never forget." A pulse of electricity shot through me, as if something had been ignited. I could see it clearly in my mind: the castle, the gown, the cameras, the audience watching, and my family, sitting at home, dressed up for Madison's wedding while 3 million strangers watched mine instead. Something inside me caught fire. "I can pull it off," I said, my voice suddenly stronger. "I can actually pull it off." Ryan's grin spread slowly. "Of course you can." And just like that, everything changed. I stood in the middle of my living room, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. The phone call had left me stunned, unable to even process what had just happened. My wedding, the one thing that should have been mine alone, was suddenly being reduced to a distant afterthought. The more I replayed my family's words in my mind, the harder it became to breathe. My stomach churned with anger, but there was also something else, something deeper. Disappointment. Not just in them, but in myself. How had I let them make me feel like this? How had I allowed it to happen, time and time again? I walked over to the couch and sat down, my phone still clutched in my hand. Madison's message was still sitting on the screen, as though she thought her condescending tone could make everything better. I hadn't even opened it. Maybe I never would. My family's indifference stung, but it was nothing new. Still, this time, it felt different. For the first time, I wasn't going to shrink back. I wasn't going to let them decide my worth. Ryan's voice cut through my thoughts, steady and comforting. "You okay?" I turned to him, barely able to keep the tears from welling up. "They want me to change my wedding date," I said, my voice shaking more than I wanted it to. "They said it's not a big deal. That hers is more important." Ryan's eyes hardened, a spark of something protective flashing across his face. "You're kidding." I shook my head, not trusting myself to speak. My breath was uneven, and the weight in my chest felt unbearable. I never thought they'd do this to me. I mean, I always knew they favored Madison. But this, it feels like they don't care about me at all. Ryan walked over and sat beside me, his hand finding mine. "They're wrong, Jojo. This is your moment. It's about you. Not them, not her." I glanced at him, my heart aching. His words should have been enough to calm me down. But it didn't change the fact that my family had made it clear that I was secondary. They'd always treated me that way. And I had allowed it. The smallest part of me wondered if they were right. Was my wedding really that important? Ryan must have seen the doubt in my eyes because he squeezed my hand. "Listen," he said, his voice soft but firm. "You're more than this. You've spent your whole life trying to make them happy. But when's it going to be enough? They'll never see you the way you deserve to be seen until you show them who you really are." His words struck something deep inside me. I felt the raw truth of it. He was right. I had spent years trying to live up to their expectations, trying to be what they wanted, to be seen as good enough. But they kept moving the goalposts. This was the moment. I could either shrink away or stand tall. I let out a breath, steadying myself. "I won't move my wedding," I said, my voice quiet but resolute. "I won't let them take this from me." Ryan smiled, his eyes filled with pride. "That's the woman I love." For the first time since the call, I felt a small spark of something warm inside me, confidence, maybe. Or maybe it was something stronger. Revenge. No, not exactly. It wasn't about getting back at them. It was about proving to myself that I was worth something, that I didn't need their approval. I stood up, pacing around the room as the idea began to take shape. "I'm going to show them," I murmured, more to myself than to Ryan. "I'm going to show them that my wedding is just as important. I'll make it something they'll never forget." Ryan watched me, a slow grin spreading across his face. "What did you have in mind?" I stopped, looking at him, the pieces falling into place. "A wedding that's bigger than Madison's. Something so unforgettable that they won't even know what hit them." Ryan laughed softly, shaking his head. "I like where this is going." I glanced around the room, my mind racing. There was so much to do, so little time. But I knew it was possible. I had the resources, the contacts, the drive. I'd always dreamed of something grand, something larger than life. Maybe I hadn't known it before, but I was ready. I smiled, the fire in me rekindled. "I'll make this wedding legendary," I said. "And they'll all wish they'd been a part of it." Ryan's grin widened. "I have no doubt. Let's do this." As the adrenaline surged through me, I grabbed my laptop, already opening contacts, making a list of everything I would need. I wasn't going to just prove something to my family. I was going to prove it to myself. This wasn't about competing with Madison. This was about reclaiming something I had lost myself. Ryan watched as I dove into the task, my mind working faster than my fingers could type. "What's the plan?" he asked, his voice playful, yet with an edge of seriousness. I didn't even hesitate. "Willowcrest Castle," I said, already dialing the number. "I'll call them first. Let's make this happen." The weight in my chest had lifted, replaced by something else, determination. For the first time, I wasn't just going to be a side note. I was going to be the headline. As I talked to the venue, confirming dates and availability, Ryan handed me a bottle of sparkling water. "To the best revenge," he said, raising his can. I clinked my can against his, the smile on my face growing. "To the best wedding," I replied. And with that, my plan began to take shape. They would all see. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Each morning, I woke up with a clear sense of purpose, the weight of my family's dismissal no longer hanging over me. Instead, it was replaced by a newfound fire, a drive to prove that my wedding, my moment, was just as important as anyone else's. The first task was securing the venue. Willowcrest Castle was the only place that could meet the grandeur I envisioned. The phone call had been a whirlwind. They were eager to accommodate, offering me the entire estate for the weekend, with no extra fees. The excitement that buzzed through me when I hung up was overwhelming. It was real. This wedding was actually happening. Ryan was there every step of the way, supporting me even when the logistics seemed impossible. I spent hours on the phone arranging the details. I contacted the production crew, the event planners, and the live stream team I had worked with before. This wasn't just a wedding, it was an event that would capture the world's attention. We were going all in. And the best part was, my family had no idea what was coming. When I called Jessica to tell her about the venue, she couldn't believe it at first. "Are you serious? Willowcrest Castle. In 12 days. "Yes," I said, barely able to contain my excitement. "It's happening. I need you to help with the design. Think big. Think viral." She was silent for a beat, then laughed. "I love it. We're gonna break the internet, Jojo." We spent the next few days refining the details, obsessing over every element. The design needed to be perfect, dramatic, yet elegant, timeless but modern. I wanted every shot to be magazine-worthy. High romance, soft gold, champagne tones, dramatic lighting. This wasn't just about the wedding. This was about making a statement. It was my time to shine, and nothing was going to stop me. Meanwhile, my phone kept buzzing with messages from my family. I hadn't responded to any of them, but I knew they were getting worried. The group chat was filled with missed calls, texts, and questions. I could feel the pressure building from their side. They didn't know how to handle my defiance. Jessica and I worked late into the night, hammering out the aesthetics of the event. Ashley, our business partner, jumped in too, offering ideas for lighting and decor. The buzz in our office was palpable, everyone feeding off the energy of the plan we were creating. It wasn't just a wedding, it was an experience. The next day, I called Harper, a wedding dress designer I admired. She picked up the phone while sketching. "Lauren, where have you been? I haven't heard from you in months." "I'm getting married," I said, barely able to contain the excitement in my voice. "And I want you to design my dress. Something unforgettable." She was silent for a moment, then her voice softened. "You're serious?"
"Yes."
"I want something that will leave everyone breathless. Come to the studio in 2 hours. We'll make it happen." I hung up, my heart racing. This was it. Everything was falling into place. When I walked into the studio that afternoon, Harper had already started sketching. The design she presented was even more beautiful than I could have imagined. Silk lace, a shimmering train that caught the light, every detail designed to make me feel like I was floating. It was perfect. As I tried on the dress, feeling the weight of the fabric settle around me, I had a moment of clarity. This was my moment. No longer would I be the overlooked daughter. I wasn't just going to have a wedding. I was going to have the wedding. A celebration that was all mine. No more comparisons. No more fighting for attention. This time I would be seen. When I left the studio, I felt lighter, stronger. I was doing this for myself. I was no longer living in the shadows of my family's expectations. The following morning, I woke up to another round of messages. My mom, my dad, and Madison were all texting, asking questions and expressing their confusion about the castle. They were clearly panicking. I could feel their desperation in each text, their attempts to regain control over something they had no power in anymore. I glanced at the messages, then silenced my phone. I wasn't interested in their excuses or their guilt. I was moving forward, and nothing they said would change that. By now, the pieces were all falling into place. Willowcrest Castle was secured, the dress was chosen, the live stream was ready to go. I had one goal now: to create a moment so unforgettable that no one would ever question my worth again. I sat down with Ryan that evening to go over the final details. The excitement in his eyes was unmistakable. "You're going to blow them away," he said, his voice full of pride. "I'm going to blow everyone away," I replied. "This isn't just about proving something to my family. This is about showing myself what I'm capable of." Ryan smiled, taking my hand. "You've always been capable, Jojo. You just needed to see it." I leaned back in my chair, taking it all in. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a declaration to my family, to the world, and most importantly, to myself. The days following my decision felt like a whirlwind. I barely had time to process everything. My head was constantly filled with plans, ideas, and logistics. The castle was booked, the dress was chosen, and the livestream team was all set to broadcast my wedding to the world. But I wasn't just planning a wedding anymore. This was a moment, a statement. I spent hours working with Jessica and the team on the design. Every detail mattered. The lighting, the decor, the floral arrangements, everything had to be perfect. I knew that if I was going to make my wedding unforgettable, every aspect needed to evoke something larger than life. The venue was a breathtaking backdrop, but the event needed to carry its own weight, its own magic. We decided on soft gold tones, champagne accents, and dramatic lighting that would make the entire castle feel like it was glowing. I wanted people to feel as though they were stepping into a fairy tale, but one that was undeniably mine. My wedding would be a celebration of who I was: bold, creative, and unapologetically myself. As the plan started to take shape, my excitement grew. But so did the tension from my family. The texts kept coming, each one more desperate than the last. They didn't understand. They couldn't. How could they, when they had never bothered to truly see me? "Lauren, we need to talk. This is getting out of hand," Mom texted. "You're going to embarrass us." Madison's messages followed. "Why are you making this so hard? This is your sister's big day. Why can't you just be happy for her?" I stared at my phone, the anger rising within me. How could they think that this was about Madison? This wasn't about competing with her. It was about finally doing something for myself. But I knew I couldn't explain that to them. They had their own agenda. They always had. And I had spent years trying to fit into their mold, trying to make them proud, to make them love me. But I was done. I set the phone down, refusing to engage with them. The weight of their judgment still lingered, but I wouldn't let it stop me. I had a wedding to plan. I had my future to build. This was the moment where I stopped playing second fiddle and started writing my own story. As the days passed, the plan came together. The wedding dress was ready, more beautiful than I had ever imagined. Harper had designed it with such care. Silk lace that shimmered in the light, a train that seemed to float as I walked. It was everything I had wanted. And I was going to wear it with pride, without hesitation, without shame. Ryan was by my side every step of the way. He helped me balance the excitement and the stress, offering support when I needed it most. He believed in me, more than anyone else ever had. That belief was a lifeline I clung to. We spent hours making sure every detail was perfect. The livestream team was on board, and they promised it would be the event of the year. I wanted every shot to be breathtaking: the aerial footage, the sweeping shots down the grand staircase, the intimate moments that would make people feel as though they were there with us, sharing in the joy. As the wedding day drew closer, the messages from my family grew more frantic. "Lauren, we're trying to understand. You can't seriously be going through with this." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The more they reached out, the more determined I became to prove them wrong. The morning of the wedding, everything felt like it was falling into place. The flowers had arrived, the lights were being tested, and the final touches were being put on the decor. The castle looked more magical than I had ever imagined. It was everything I had envisioned, and more. Ryan, who had been a calming presence throughout all of this, turned to me as we stood in the grand foyer, gazing around at the finished setup. "It's perfect," he said softly. "You did it." I took a deep breath, feeling a rush of pride. "We did it." I corrected, my voice steady. "This is all me. This is my wedding, my moment." His smile grew, full of admiration. "You've made it happen, Jojo. I'm so proud of you." For the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like I had to apologize for taking up space. This was mine. I had built this, piece by piece, and no one could take that away from me. As we stood there, the sound of the guests starting to arrive filtered through the halls. The anticipation was palpable. The livestream countdown was ticking away, and I could feel the adrenaline building. In just a few hours, I would be walking down the aisle, and the whole world would be watching. I couldn't help but smile. This was it. My moment. The moment where I finally stood up for myself, where I stopped being invisible and started being seen. "Are you ready?" Ryan asked, his voice full of excitement and tenderness. I nodded, my heart racing. More than ready. And as the doors to the grand ballroom opened, I stepped into the light, walking toward the most important day of my life, knowing that I had created something truly unforgettable. The wedding day had arrived, and with it, a mix of excitement and nerves that I had never felt before. Every inch of the castle gleamed with elegance. The chandeliers sparkled like stars, and the soft golden glow of the lights bounced off the marble floors. I had spent so many months planning this, imagining this day, and now it was here. I was about to walk down the aisle, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would change everything. Ryan stood by my side, his reassuring presence grounding me. "It's perfect," he said, smiling as he adjusted his tie. "You've created something beautiful." "Thanks to you," I replied, my voice full of emotion. His support had been unwavering throughout this entire journey. Without him, I doubted I would have been able to do any of this. His belief in me had been the spark I needed. The guests had arrived, and the energy in the air was electric. I could hear the soft hum of conversations in the ballroom as they gathered. The team was ready for the live stream, everything was in place. The cameras were set up, and the audience was waiting. I stepped into my dress once more, the silk lace brushing against my skin, the train trailing behind me like a veil of dreams. The dress felt like it was made for this moment, for me to stand tall and proud. I stood in front of the mirror, taking in my reflection. I looked different than I had ever seen myself. Not just in the dress, but in the way I carried myself, confident, strong, and ready. I wasn't just a bride today. I was a woman reclaiming her space in a world that had always made her feel second-rate. Today wasn't just about a wedding. It was about showing up for myself in a way I never had before. Ryan walked over to me, taking my hands in his. "You're incredible," he said, his voice filled with awe. I smiled at him, feeling the warmth of his words settle deep inside me. "This is it," I whispered. "This is the moment." The music began to play, a soft, romantic tune that echoed throughout the castle. The doors to the ballroom opened, and the rush of emotions I had been holding back surged to the surface. The world seemed to slow down. Every step I took was measured, deliberate, as if I were walking toward a new version of myself. The grandeur of the castle made everything feel like a fairy tale, but it was my story now, and I was the heroine. As I walked down the aisle, I could feel the eyes of the guests on me, their gazes filled with admiration. The cameras clicked, capturing each moment, but I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about how far I had come, from the girl who had always been overlooked to the woman standing before them, confident and unapologetically herself. My family was in the back of the room, sitting quietly as they watched. I could feel their eyes on me, but I refused to let it affect me. They had written me off, but today I was writing my own story. When I reached the altar, Ryan took my hands, his touch steadying me. I looked up at him, seeing the pride in his eyes, and I realized that it didn't matter what anyone else thought. This day was mine. I had made it happen. The ceremony unfolded like a dream, and the livestream feed was buzzing with comments, messages of love, and admiration. I couldn't help but smile as the numbers climbed. 3 million people were watching, and none of them were there because they had to be. They were there because they wanted to celebrate this moment with me. They were there because my wedding was something worth watching. When the vows were exchanged, and Ryan whispered, "I do," I felt a deep sense of peace settle over me. This wasn't just about proving my family wrong. It was about proving to myself that I was worth something, that I deserved to be seen, to be celebrated, and to be loved. Not because of anyone else's validation, but because of my own. The officiant pronounced us husband and wife, and the room erupted in applause. The cameras captured every second, broadcasting the joy and love we had created. As Ryan leaned in to kiss me, I could feel the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. This wasn't just the start of a marriage, It was the start of a new chapter in my life. After the kiss, we stood there for a moment, taking in the reality of it all. The grandeur, the love, the moment that was entirely ours. As the applause continued, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. My family's approval no longer defined me. This day, this moment, was about me and Ryan, and about the world seeing who I had become. Backstage, as we prepared to enter the reception, my phone buzzed. I hesitated for a moment before checking the screen. It was a message from my mom, followed by several texts from Madison. "Lauren, we didn't know it would be this big." My mom wrote, "Can we join the livestream? The link isn't working." Madison's message followed immediately after. "Did you seriously get 3 million people to watch your wedding?" Why? I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the livestream countdown link with no comment. Within seconds, my phone rang. It was Mom. I took a deep breath before answering. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You chose Madison's wedding over mine. You made it clear that hers was the priority. Now I'm choosing myself." There was a long pause, the silence thick with the weight of unspoken words. Then I heard her voice, small and shaky. "Lauren, I didn't mean to hurt you. I cut her off gently. It's too late for apologies. I'm happy, and that's all that matters now." With that, I ended the call. The relief that followed was immediate. No more guilt, no more trying to prove myself to people who would never truly see me. I turned to Ryan, who was watching me with a mixture of concern and pride. "That felt good," I said softly, my voice steady. Ryan smiled, pulling me close. "You've done it. You've built something amazing. And you did it for you." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle deep inside me. The night was still young, and the celebration had just begun. This was my story, and no one would ever be able to take that away from me. The evening unfolded in a haze of lights, laughter, and excitement. The reception was everything I had hoped for and more. The castle glowed in soft, golden light, the chandeliers sparkling like a million tiny stars. The sound of the orchestra filled the air, the music setting a romantic and magical tone. Every detail we had planned came to life, from the delicate flowers on each table to the towering centerpiece that seemed to breathe with life. As we moved from the first dance to the speeches, the live stream numbers kept climbing. Every time I checked, it was higher: 2 million, 2.5 million, 3 million. The viewers were engaged, commenting in real time, sending love and support, sharing their joy with us. It felt surreal. The wedding I had always dreamed of was happening, and the world was watching. But this time, it wasn't about proving my family wrong. It was about proving to myself that I could build something truly extraordinary. Ryan and I had barely left each other's side since the ceremony. Every time I looked at him, I saw pride in his eyes, and it filled me with a sense of calm and warmth. He'd always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. And now, I was finally living up to the person he had always known I could be. The night wore on, and as the guests danced and laughed, I could hear whispers of admiration. Some of the people I didn't know, the ones who had come because they had been invited, kept commenting on how beautiful the event was. "This is incredible," one woman said, smiling at me as she passed by. "I've never seen anything like it." For the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel like I was fading into the background while others took center stage. This was my moment, and for once everyone was noticing. At one point, as I was walking through the ballroom with Ryan, I saw my family standing together off to the side. Their faces were a mix of disbelief and something else: regret. Maybe. My mom was on her phone, probably trying to reach me, while Madison stood with her arms crossed, her expression tight. I could feel the weight of their judgment, but I refused to let it affect me. They had made their choice. They had chosen Madison's wedding over mine, and now, I was the one who had the world's attention. I glanced at Ryan, who was watching me with an almost knowing look. "They didn't think you could do it," he said softly. I nodded, my throat tight. I didn't think I could either. "But look at this." Ryan gave me a soft smile. "Look at you. You've built something beautiful." The music swelled and I was lost in the moment for a while. But as the night drew on, the weight of everything began to settle in my chest. I wasn't just celebrating a wedding. I was celebrating the woman I had become, the woman I had always been, but had been too afraid to embrace fully. I looked around the room at all the people who had come to support us. They weren't there out of obligation or family loyalty. They were there because they wanted to be. And for the first time, I realized that was enough. It didn't matter that my family wasn't on the live stream, or that they hadn't shown up in the way I had hoped. What mattered was that I was surrounded by people who cared about me for who I truly was. People who believed in me, just as Ryan always had. The live stream continued to climb, and I felt the rush of excitement that only comes with seeing something come to life in ways you never imagined. People were commenting on how beautiful the ceremony was, how breathtaking the venue was, how stunning my dress was. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone else to validate me. I had done it on my own. Around midnight, as the last of the guests danced and the night started winding down, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet. The cool night air brushed against my skin, and the castle's lights shimmered in the distance. I felt a sense of calm wash over me, one I hadn't expected. It was the peace that comes with knowing you've done the right thing for yourself. Ryan found me standing there, looking out at the stars. He wrapped his arms around me, and I leaned into him, grateful for his presence. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I whispered. "I'm more than okay. This is the happiest I've ever been." He kissed the top of my head, and for the first time in so long, I felt completely free. Free from the expectations. Free from the fear of not being enough. I had created this, and it was everything I had hoped for. Later that night, after the guests had gone, and the live stream had ended, I sat in the quiet of the ballroom with Ryan. The final count on the live stream was over 4 million views. 4 million people had watched my wedding. They hadn't come out of obligation, out of family ties. They had come because they wanted to. And that, more than anything, made me feel seen. Ryan squeezed my hand, his voice low. "You did it, Jojo. You showed the world who you are." I looked at him, my heart swelling. "I showed myself," I replied softly. "And that's all that matters." He smiled, his eyes filled with love. "This is just the beginning, you know that." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the start. And for the first time in my life, I knew that whatever came next, I would be ready. The next few days were a blur. The wedding was over, and the world had seen what I had built. But now, as the reality settled in, I felt something new bubbling up, a mix of satisfaction, relief, and something else. Something I hadn't expected. The weight of the decision I had made was starting to feel heavier. The aftermath had begun, and I couldn't help but feel it. The texts from my family kept coming. The missed calls, the desperate attempts to reach me, the attempts to fix things. They had ignored me, dismissed me, and now they were regretting it. At first I ignored them. But as the hours passed, the guilt started to creep in. Ryan noticed the shift in me immediately. "Hey," he said, sitting down beside me one evening. "Hey, are you okay?" I glanced at my phone where another text from my mom had just arrived. I hadn't even opened it. "I don't know," I admitted, letting out a deep breath. I'm proud of what I did. But now they want to make it better. They want to make things right. And I don't know if I should let them in. Ryan's expression softened. "You don't have to decide anything right now. You did what you needed to do, Jojo. And you did it for you. You're allowed to feel good about that." I nodded, trying to hold on to the strength I had felt during the wedding, when the world felt like it was mine for the taking. But now, with the silence of the aftermath surrounding me, it was harder to hold on to. The reality of my family's reaction was sinking in. They had made it clear that I wasn't a priority. So why did their sudden need for reconciliation feel so unsettling? I picked up my phone, scrolling through the messages. Mom had sent a series of texts, apologizing, saying how proud they were, how much they regretted not being there, how they wished they could have been part of my day. Madison's messages were less apologetic. "Did you seriously get 3 million people to watch your wedding?" She wrote, "Why are you doing this? You're embarrassing yourself." The words stung, even though I had expected them. But I couldn't deny the truth behind them. Madison was right about one thing. This wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It was about something much bigger. And I wasn't sure if I was ready to let them back in. I felt Ryan's hand on my shoulder, his presence grounding me. "You've already made it clear," he said gently. "You did this for yourself, and no one can take that away from you, no matter what they say." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of everything. He was right. I had built this. My wedding, my life, my moment, it was all mine. But the truth was, the hurt still lingered. The loneliness, the feeling of being discarded, it hadn't gone away just because I had made my point. Ryan's voice broke through my thoughts. "So, What do you want to do now? I stared at the phone in my hands, weighing the options. I had the power to ignore them, to cut them off completely. I could continue on this path building my life with Ryan and the people who truly supported me. But something inside me tugged. The hope that things could be different, that maybe, just maybe, they were finally seeing me for who I truly was. I'm not sure, I said quietly, feeling the conflict swirl inside me. I want to move on, but part of me still wants them to see me, to really see me. Ryan pulled me closer, his warmth a comfort against the uncertainty. You've already shown them who you are, Jojo. And you don't have to prove it again. But if you decide to give them another chance, do it on your terms, not theirs. I let out a breath, the weight in my chest easing slightly. I don't want to be the backup anymore. I don't want to be invisible. Not ever again. Ryan kissed the top of my head, his voice steady. Then don't be. You've already created something bigger than they could ever understand. The next day, as I sat with Ryan and reflected on everything that had happened, I realized that no matter what I decided with my family, this was my life. I had stepped into it fully, and for the first time I was making the decisions. I was no longer waiting for permission to exist on my own terms. I finally opened the family group chat. There was no immediate reply from my mom, but Madison had sent a short message. Are you really doing this? This is ridiculous. You're trying to steal my moment. I smiled to myself. It wasn't about stealing anything. It was about claiming my own, my moment, my life. Thanks, Madison, I typed back. But this isn't about you. It's about me finally being seen. I hit send and closed the chat. I didn't need to respond anymore. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. This was my journey, and I was the one driving it forward. The family would have to come to terms with that. But in the meantime, I had my future to build, and it wasn't going to wait for anyone. As Ryan wrapped his arms around me, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Whatever came next, I knew that I had finally stepped into my own, and no one could take that away. The morning after the wedding, I woke up with a calmness I hadn't expected. The excitement, the whirlwind, it was all over. The live stream had ended, the guests had gone, and the castle, once filled with laughter and music, now felt eerily quiet. But the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like peace. Like I had finally found the place I was meant to be. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hand resting on the soft silk of my wedding dress, which was carefully laid out on the chair beside me. I thought back to the night before, to the live stream, to the moment I had stepped into the spotlight and felt the weight of my own worth for the first time. The numbers kept rising. 3 million people had watched. 3 million people had witnessed my moment, and that felt powerful. But it wasn't the numbers that mattered. It was the fact that I had done it, for me. Ryan was already up, making coffee in the kitchen. He always seemed to wake up earlier than me, ready to take on the day, ready to share in whatever adventure came next. I could hear him humming as he worked, the sound of the coffee machine filling the quiet apartment. When he saw me walking into the kitchen, he smiled and set a mug in front of me. "Morning, Mrs. Harris," he said softly, his eyes full of pride. I laughed and kissed him on the cheek. "Morning, Mr. Harris." We sat together, sipping our coffee. The quiet of the morning wrapping around us like a blanket. But as I sat there with him, I realized that the sense of peace I was feeling wasn't just because the wedding was over. It was because I had finally chosen myself. I hadn't waited for anyone's approval. I hadn't let anyone tell me I wasn't worth it. I had created this life, this moment, on my own terms. Ryan reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "You did it, Jojo," he said softly. "You've come so far." "I know," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "And it feels amazing. For the first time, I felt like I had a place in the world. I had spent so much of my life trying to please everyone else, trying to fit into a mold that wasn't mine. But now, I was stepping into my own. And I wasn't asking for permission. I wasn't waiting for anyone to see me. I was done trying to prove myself to people who would never truly understand. The phone buzzed on the counter, breaking the silence. I picked it up, and a wave of nerves hit me as I saw the messages from my family. My mom had sent another text, this time apologizing profusely. "Lauren, we're so sorry. We didn't understand, but we do now. Can we talk?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep moving forward without them. But another part of me, the part that had always wanted their approval, their love, felt the tug. It wasn't about forgiving them, not yet. It wasn't even about whether they truly understood. It was about whether I was ready to let them back into my life, and whether I could do so without losing myself in the process. I sat for a moment, thinking. Ryan's gaze was steady, watching me closely. He had seen how my family's rejection had affected me, how I had spent years trying to earn their love. But he also knew how far I'd come. He knew that I wasn't the same woman who had been afraid to speak up. I wasn't the same woman who had been invisible. I was someone different now. Someone stronger. Do you want to respond? He asked quietly, his voice filled with understanding. I took a deep breath, scrolling through the messages. I felt the weight of the decision settling on my shoulders. They hadn't been there for me when I needed them most, but that didn't mean I had to shut them out forever. It didn't mean I had to let their opinions dictate how I lived my life. I think it's time, I said, my voice soft but steady. I can't keep running from them. Not forever. Ryan nodded. On your terms, he reminded me gently. I smiled at him, feeling the support he always gave me. On my terms. I typed a quick response to my mom. We can talk. But it's going to take time. I need you to understand that I'm not going to go back to being the person I was before. I'm not that person anymore. I hit send and put the phone down. The decision was made. I wasn't closing the door on them completely, but I wasn't going to let them walk back into my life and erase everything I had worked so hard for. Ryan squeezed my hand, and I smiled at him. Whatever happens, I've got this. I'm done letting anyone else define me. He kissed the top of my head. I know. And I'll be right here every step of the way. The days that followed were filled with a sense of purpose. I continued to work on the business I had built with Jessica and Ashley, the one that had always been my true passion. I worked harder than ever, but now, there was no doubt in my mind that I was doing it for myself. The wedding had been a turning point, yes, but it was only the beginning. As I stood in front of the mirror one morning, getting ready for another day, I realized something. The woman staring back at me wasn't the same woman I had been just a few months ago. She was stronger, bolder, more unapologetically herself. And for the first time, I was proud of who I had become. This was my life now, and no one, not even my family, could take that away from me. I smiled at my reflection, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. The future was mine, and I was ready for whatever came next.